All right, welcome back into the Yappin' Football podcast. As always, Dylan Mehl, joined by my guy Javon from Stats Over Feelings. Week 4, it is not in the books yet, but Sunday Night Football has just come to an end. And last week we came up, we were both happy. The Eagles and Steelers had won. Our fantasy games were doing good. We'd made a little bit of money. This week it is the exact opposite, but the one thing that'll never change is us up here talking NFL football. Today just felt like, I don't want to say a drag because the games weren't terrible, but I don't know if it was just me. It was just a very lazy Sunday. That's how I felt.
Yeah, that's facts, man. It just last week it was so many upsets, and then this week it just seemed all dull. The matchups weren't there, in my opinion, either. There was
besides the Sunday night game. The Sunday night game, the matchup was fun, but then it was kind of over pretty quickly. We will talk about the Ravens later in the video. As always, the timestamps should be in the description. If not, I have the banners on so you can zoom through. But we'll start with it. I'll address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the Eagles because I think there's a lot of bad information, a lot of bad takes about the Eagles, but I don't think that there's not things to be concerned about for this team. For starters, this game in a vacuum, I'm not going to put too much stake into. The Week 4 game versus Tampa, no A.J. Brown, no Devonta Smith, no Lane Johnson, 100 degrees. You lose Reed Blankenship, you lose Cam Jurgens, you lose Dallas Goedert to injury. Everybody is not playing. They didn't look motivated, to be honest, knowing that the bye week was coming up, which that is a coaching issue. But I'm not, like, this loss to Tampa Bay, I'm not going to go, well, that's it. But there are some real issues with this team. One, Jalen Hurts has become a turnover machine, and it's in the big spots. Now it's becoming a problem of when it is, too. It's near the red zone as you're driving. This game versus Tampa, they had a good opportunity to make it a one-score game. I believe it was 24-14, and they were driving to potentially make it 21-14, and he turns the ball over. That has happened far too often. And after an offseason of being an Eagles fan, hearing Jalen Hurts is having this impeccable training camp, he's not even turning the ball over. He set the record for the most pass attempts without an interception in training camp. And then to see this still continue to be an issue is very frustrating if you're an Eagles fan. As well, the secondary, it's not all together yet. Is that because it's young? Is that because it's a new system? Is that because the talent isn't really fully there? Probably a combination of all three of those things. The defense doesn't have a pass rush either. I think during the bye week, they should try and get Hassan Reddick back, if I'm being 100% honest. Bryce Huff has been a non-factor. Hassan Reddick hinted, it was either on a podcast or a tweet, that he was open to coming back to Philly. So if he's open, call up the Jets and maybe give him Bryce Huff back. Maybe they're comfortable with that contract because he's done nothing in Philly. But those are my real concerns with this team. However, I will say the people that want to act like the Eagles are a bad team, I think that's crazy. I think it's a playoff team. There's too much talent on the roster, but I don't feel like this is a team that could win a Super Bowl right now. Now, the defense has been bad because they've been forced to be out there for so long because the offense can't sustain drives, especially without Devonta Smith, without A.J. Brown, and without Lane Johnson. But they won't have to be out there as long. The Eagles need to start better. There's a lot that they need to fix that I think that they can, but the big issues that I think are Jalen Hurts needs to be smarter, and we're going on a 10-game stretch now where he just hasn't been, and it's kind of like, when's he going to turn around? Is he going to turn around? And two, the lack of a pass rush on the defense. Those are my two big concerns that I just don't know how or if there's a fix for. But I still think that roster and talent-wise, the Eagles are a playoff team. People, overreacting, being like, well, who are they going to take with their top 5, top 10 pick? I'm like, whoa, calm it down.
There's people saying that you guys aren't playoff caliber.
It's Eagles fans.
Oh, wow.
Eagles fans are so that's why we get the you're the worst fan base reputation, because whatever it is, it's to the extreme. So that's why I'm saying, like, the loss to Tampa Bay, I don't look at in that vacuum and be like, that's the season. but it was a bad loss. But there was a lot going against them in that game as well.
Man, there were people saying that Jalen Hurts was a top 3, top 4 quarterback in football just a couple years ago. And look how the tables have turned now, man. No lie.
I mean, in 2022, he was top 2.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles still have some things going for them. The NFC is wide open still. I know the 49ers looked really good today, especially on defense.
Same record. And that's the thing. The 49ers 2-2. Dallas is 2-2. Green Bay is 2-2. We'll see what the Lions are after tomorrow. These teams that were looked at as the primary contenders are 2-2. The Vikings are 4-0. We'll talk about them in a minute, but not exactly a team that a lot of people had a ton of confidence in. The Commanders are 3-1. We're going to talk about them. The Seahawks might be 4-0. Those are not teams that people were like, those are the front runners. Those are the lead of the pack in the NFC. So, like you said, I do think it's still wide open.
Yeah, 100%. It wouldn't surprise me if a team sneaks into the Super Bowl with a 10-7 regular season record. That wouldn't surprise nobody. But with that being said, with all these teams that are 2-2 right now, one of these teams is going to miss it. Dallas, Philly, somebody's going to miss it that everybody expected to make the playoffs this year. I think that's a given already. So that's one thing the Eagles should be worried about. Also, the fact that you lost to the Buccaneers the way you lost to them in the playoffs, and now I know you guys had a lot of injuries, but that would be a little bit alarming too, man. You get a second shot at them.
Well, it's alarming how the team came out with no energy. I mean, they got punched in the mouth and they were down 28-0.
That's coaching.
That's
and leadership as well. But
that's coaching, and it's Kellen Moore really should take some time during this bye week, and I don't want to judge him too much because your offense, you've had only your offense together 1 week, really. Everybody that you thought you were going to have, you've only had that for 1 week. And in that week, you put up 31 on a pretty good Packers defense. We saw the weeks after that's a good defense in Green Bay. So I don't want to, completely be like, this is terrible, this is nonsense. And this week, you had missing your star right tackle, missing AJ Brown, missing Devonta Smith. 2 wide receivers that played were from the practice squad, and John Ross and Paris Campbell. So
Ross.
It's on one hand, it's how much do you hold that against Kellen Moore? But on the other, it's, well, why are we not just forcing touches to Saquon Barkley then, who has proven to be explosive? But then it's do you want to force touches to Saquon when it feels 108 degrees out and everybody's cramping up anyways? Like I said, this game was such a tough spot, and it's why that it was so necessary for the Eagles to win versus New Orleans. No team needed a bye week in week 5 more than Philly at this point. The injuries, the things that they need to figure out, just a mental, real quick timeout check for the Eagles, I think is a good spot to be here. They play Cleveland off of the bye. Cleveland couldn't even beat a Raiders team without Devontae Adams and Max Crosby today. So that game at home in Philly, if Philly doesn't come out and win that game by 7+ points and score 4 touchdowns, there's a problem.
Yeah, especially if all these players are come back healthy. that would be alarming, man. But you guys definitely, I mean, the conference is still wide open, man. Mm-hmm. So, and like you said, we're only a week 4. You guys do have a bye week. So,
and for the record, last year we started off 4-0 and looked like the best team in football, and you saw how that ended. So it's not always about how you start; it's about how you finish in the NFL.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't want it to seem like I'm an Eagles fan that's ignoring the problems that are there. I certainly recognize some of the offensive issues and Jalen Hurts problems, but I've been pretty clear with my standing on this for not just the Eagles, but for every team. We can start to have opinions after the first month of the season, but they're not set in stone by any means.
A lot of things can change. We haven't even approached the trade deadline yet. We don't know what moves can be made at all. The teams could be completely different by the next 3-4 weeks.
I don't think anybody will deny this when it comes to just pure talent, top to bottom on the roster. The Eagles are top 5, top 10 in football. When you have that, you have the ability to turn it around. Yeah. And again, they're 500. It's not like, it's not like they're the Bengals who finally got a win today versus Carolina. This is a team, 500 ball. You got to be a little bit better than 500 to get in the playoffs, but the Eagles have been 500 and a lot of things have gone against them. Their play has been bad, but a lot of things out of their control have also gone against them.
Yeah, all you got to do is get in the playoffs, man. At that point, and
yeah,
you guys have the talent to win a game on any given Sunday. So at that point, that's what makes you guys scary, anyway.
For sure. And we got another 2-2 team that wears green. Are we panicked about the New York Jets? And here's what I'll say: their offense does worry me because I haven't even seen flashes of it being great. They had some good drives versus New England, but I mean, Garrett Wilson, now it's finally his year to be a wide receiver 1, and him and Rodgers are just not on the same page. I know he was up against Pat Surtain this week, and I'm not just talking about it from a numbers perspective, but him and Rodgers, not on the same page. Mike Williams and Allen Lazard are not dependable number 2s, and when defenses are able to stack the box, you saw today Breece Hall did virtually nothing. And it was a sloppy, rainy day. I get it. But to lose to the Broncos, a team that I think realistically could be in the conversation for a top 5 pick, that is not a good spot. And what even concerns me even more for the Jets is after the game, Robert Saleh said something about the likes of Aaron Rodgers' cadence. They had 5 false start penalties today.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers with the hard count, maybe they need to cut back on that. And then a reporter asked Rodgers, "Oh, Robert Saleh said that you might need to cut down on the hard count. What do you think about that?" And he goes, "I think there needs to be accountability for the people who jumped off sides." He's like, "I've done the cadence and the hard count in every practice we've done, in every game we've done, and it wasn't a problem. It was just a problem today, and there needs to be accountability for those players." And it's like, oh, so star quarterback and head coach are not on the same page whatsoever.
Starting quarterback and the rest of the team or offense apparently isn't on the same page. So,
and it's are they good enough talent-wise to figure that out? Because we just talked about with the Eagles offense has A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert. Like, that's a good enough offense in terms of just pure talent to make plays to just kind of get by while they figure things out. The Jets, it's 40-year-old Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall.
Yeah.
That's not good enough to just get – I mean, clearly you saw today that's just not good enough to get by. Like, they're playing healthy and couldn't get into the end zone. At least for Philly, there's the excuse of everybody was out, but Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, man, they definitely – you think it's panic time for them? I don't think it's panic time yet because my expectations weren't that high for them to begin with.
Well, so I think in that building, the expectations were Super Bowl. And I think when you look around that AFC right now, it's Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston, the Chargers. Those are all – the Chargers are a better team, though.
The Jets?
Than the Jets right now.
I'll buy that.
I would say that they're playing better. Pittsburgh's playing better.
Yeah, and we still don't got to wait till Cincinnati catches fire too. We don't know.
So that's what like the AFC is loaded. You can't afford to lag behind, and you also can't afford to give up the gimme games.
Yeah.
And this was a game that they should have won. Zerline missed the kick at the end, and I know that stings Jets fans, but this is a game that you should have dominated the same way you dominated New England.
Yeah, I mean, the offense for the Jets, it just seems so predictable, man. Even when you watch them ball out, quote unquote, against the Patriots, the offense was predictable, man. Aaron Rodgers doesn't really push the ball downfield. So if you cut off all the intermediate to 5 yards passes, man, he's not pushing the ball downfield because there's no one who can get there. Allen Lazard is not a deep threat. He's more of a jump ball receiver. He's more of a one-on-one guy.
And I wouldn't even say that Garrett Wilson can do it all, but
yeah,
I wouldn't call him a deep threat.
So I mean, and we've seen this Broncos defense give people fits in the past. I mean, the defense isn't atrocious, man.
The Broncos defense, to give them credit, they beat up Tampa Bay last week. They gave Pittsburgh a run for their money. Week 1, Seattle kind of dog walked them a little bit, but on the road in Seattle, game 1, it's like I think the Broncos defense is a good defense. But I think the Jets offense, if they're looking to be a real playoff team and be viewed as an AFC threat, needs to be able to score a touchdown against them.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Broncos are giving teams fits, man, and we've seen them be a top 5 defense before. So you can't come out lackadaisical against them. You combine that with the fact that I believe that the Jets offense is predictable. The offense is not bought into Aaron Rodgers. Nobody's really going to put their body on the line for him. I mean, it seemed like he's just out there and he wants to just be the diva or what have you, man. I mean, honestly, but we're going to see. If the false starts change in the future, we're going to see. But somebody on offense has to step up 100%. Braylon Allen has been pretty good. He's shown flashes as well, both in the passing and in the run game. But they need to trade for a receiver who can stretch the ball downfield, man. They need a Calvin Austin or a Rashid Shaheed. They need a Jalen Waddle type of guy who can take the top off the defense, man, because right now they look so predictable. And if you're losing to the Broncos in week 4, you know, what's your record gonna look like when week 7 or week 8 rolls around? And now you can mess around.
And if memory serves me correct, I know they play Buffalo in 2 weeks' time because they said that on the Sunday night broadcast. Yeah. But I believe the Jets go to London next week and they play Minnesota. So they have back-to-back tough teams to play. And it could be very possible that in 2 weeks the Jets are 2-4.
Yeah, you got to look at that.
It's not off the table. And listen, you're not writing them off, but you look ahead at that schedule. You see that they dropped a give me game here. I don't think it's full blown panic alarm, but I think we start to look around and go, "What do we have here?"
Yeah.
What are our expectations? Because I, hand up, I'll say it. I believed the roster was good enough to win a Super Bowl. But in terms of the roster, I thought that they could have had the best defense in football, a really good run game in Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. And I thought that Garrett Wilson and a Malachi Corley and then a Mike Williams were going to be good enough to make plays when the Jets needed them. But they haven't been on the same page as Rodgers, and they haven't been good enough in spots to make plays when they needed them. Exactly. Today is when they needed to be good enough in spots to just make plays and grind it out and get this ugly win. And they weren't. So that's where I'm concerned, because you can't win the ugly games. You're going to have a hard time competing in the AFC, because their pathway to winning, or to getting to a Super Bowl or to getting to an AFC championship, it was to make games ugly with Kansas City and with Houston and with Baltimore, because you didn't have the offensive firepower to keep up with them. You needed to be able to run the ball. You needed to be able to, drain the clock, have good time of possession, have your defense stifle the other team. And when they do that, you have to capitalize. And they didn't capitalize today. It's not to say that, again, like we said with the Eagles, it's week 4. Teams could, they're 2-2. You're not so far behind the 8 ball that you're 0-4.
Yeah.
But there is question of, can they figure it out?
One more question. If I'm not mistaken, did Aaron Rodgers throw the ball 50-something times today? I might be tripping, but I don't know. They need to work on their identity too, because Braylon Allen and Breece Hall combined, that has to be at least 30 to 35 touches a game if you want to be competitive in the AFC, man. Especially with the top 5 defense that you think they're capable of having. Like
he threw the ball 42 times today. 42. And only had 225 passing yards, and the leading receiver was Mike Williams with 67.
He doesn't push the ball down the field.
I mean,
he doesn't.
You can't blame him.
I mean, yeah, but like I said, nobody can really get there, man. Or he just scared of getting hit.
He tried to get the ball up the seam to Garrett Wilson today, and you saw a moment where they're clearly not on the same page, because he thought Garrett Wilson was going to go in the hash marker and get into the open space and just catch the ball. He throws it, and Garrett doesn't even turn around, and the ball just skips off the ground. And whoever was the cameraman did a great job, because they zoomed in on Rodgers' face, and he's just sitting there like,
he probably wanted a back shoulder or something.
He was like, what is going on? But that is the Jets right now. Can they figure it out? Time will tell. But my confidence in Nat Hackett coaching up an offense to figure it out, not high. Not high. But a team that has certainly been coached up and has certainly figured it out, in my opinion, is the Minnesota Vikings. I made a video on my channel about the Vikings last week and how I thought I had seen enough to believe that this team was real. And I didn't want to get caught up in the September overreactions of things, and I still don't. But they dominate the Giants, who are they're 1-3, but competed with Dallas, beat Cleveland. I forget who they played week 2, but the Washington. And they scored 3 touchdowns and gave up 0, but lost the game because they didn't have a kicker. So they've been in 3 competitive games after Minnesota, but Minnesota wiped the floor with them, made them look really, really bad. Week 2, Minnesota, it doesn't show in the box score, but I think handled San Francisco. Now, San Francisco was out Debo and out McCaffrey, but you still have, Purdy, Trent Williams. You had Kittle for most of that game, Ayuk, Javon Jennings. So, it's not exactly a bad team. I wouldn't say it's an amazing team, but I think it's still a playoff roster. If they had no Debo, no McCaffrey all year, they'd still make the playoffs. That's my thought there. And then they handle Houston, which, in my opinion, has one of the better offenses in the NFL. C.J. Stroud's one of the better quarterbacks, better decision makers, and Brian Flores had him really, really confused. Then today, they go into Green Bay and beat the Packers. They had a real hold on this game, and then Jordan Love and the Packers almost pulled off the comeback in Lambeau. But 4-0 in a 3-game stretch where they beat San Francisco, Houston, and Green Bay. I don't know if there's going to be a better 3-game win streak stretch in the NFL this year.
Yeah, man. Most people were saying that was a gauntlet to start.
Well, and they're balling. And they're balling, and it's at all levels. The defense has been really, really good. Brian Flores runs a defense that, C.J. Stroud talked about it. Brock Purdy talked about it. They just don't see anything like it. I mean, it is really, really confusing for quarterbacks and for reads. And then the offense, Sam Darnold has been exactly what he has been, the Vikings Brock Purdy. That's how I'm going about describing him, because this year, through 4 games, he has 657 yards. That's 219 a game. I don't know if they updated his stats today. I'm starting to think that they didn't at that number. But he throws around 220 ish yards a game. So nothing crazy. Today against the Packers, he had a pretty solid day. He had 275, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Pretty solid day. Justin Jefferson making the case to be the definitive, undoubted best wide receiver in football. He scored a touchdown in all 4 weeks. Aaron Jones has been really solid for this team, and the offense has been really good at just doing their job, especially under Kevin O'Connell. The scheme is great. Jordan Addison back off of injury today. He scores 2 touchdowns. They still don't have TJ Hawkinson back. The Vikings are for real, and they remind me a lot of last year's 49ers. Whether people want to, are ready for that comparison or not, that's where I'm at with this team.
Yeah, man. I mean, the one thing that has stayed consistent throughout this entire year for the Vikings has been the defense. And I don't think nobody was expecting that, I mean, we've seen them win when Aaron Jones is held to less than 60 yards and they couldn't get the run game going. We've seen Aaron Jones go for $120, man. We've seen this team win in so many different ways. And nobody was expecting this, man. Sam Darnold probably, if you were to end the season right now, would probably be top 3 in MVP voting, honestly. So
yeah, I mean, he might be number 1.
Yeah, they're 4-0.
Because now that Josh Allen lost, Josh Allen's the guy that you would have said. But I wonder if after today, if they held a vote, I wouldn't be shocked if it was Darnold.
Yeah, man. And then you look at that offense, man. That offense is like a quarterback's dream. They just don't. I don't see this team slowing down soon if this defense could stay consistent like they've been the entire year. They've been the most consistent part of this Vikings team. So I definitely do think that they're real.
Yeah, and they coming into the week, led the NFL in sacks. Jonathan Grenard, who they brought over from Houston, had 4 sacks already on the year. He's been producing at a high level. Dallas Turner is still developing. They have Stephon Gilmore, an underrated addition to this defense that they brought in this offseason. They brought in Cashman as well from the Texans at linebacker, Van Ginkel. So they brought in a lot of pieces, and Brian Flores showed glimpses of this at the end of last year. A defense that could be stifling, and it is just hitting on all cylinders right now. And when you have a defense like that and such a good offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell with weapons on an offense, Justin Jefferson, probably the best wide receiver in all of football, Jordan Addison, top 5 to 10 wide receiver twos in the NFL for sure. Hawkinson on his way back, a good offensive line, and a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who, I think that a lot of people's opinions on Darnold were made up from his Jets days, but now this is a guy who was a top 5 pick who's now finally in a good system with a good head coach, with a good offensive mind, with good pieces around him. And this isn't to say that I think Sam Darnold is a top 5 to 10 quarterback, because I didn't think that about Brock Purdy. But whatever your opinion was on Brock Purdy this year, you should be giving that same energy to Sam Darnold, because that is what he's doing.
Hey, that's facts, man. Sam Darnold, I mean, we've seen it with several different quarterbacks. Given the right situation, they can show up and show out, man. I want to see how this team is going to end up finishing the season, because I don't know whether to buy their playoff hopes or not, man. Like whether they can actually make it to the Super Bowl.
I mean, if the NFC stays like this, I don't see why not. And it's not to say that the Vikings are going to finish 17-0. But every other team in the NFC also has question marks. You get home field advantage if you're the Vikings. You have good weapons. You have that defense. I don't think there's a reason to believe that they couldn't go on a Super Bowl run. Now, it'd be hard for me to pick them to win it, because you get to that Super Bowl and it's Mahomes and Reed, or it's Lamar and Harbaugh, or it's Stroud and D'Amico, and you're at best even in the coaching matchup and probably losing the quarterback matchup. But, I mean, the roster is there.
And in the NFC, there's not too many teams with legitimate playoff experience as well.
And the quarterback situation in the NFC, because Stafford's 1-3 now, and I think many people would say that Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC, but he's 1-3. The weapons aren't coming back anytime soon. They might miss. And then you start to look around the NFC of some of the better teams. Geno Smith, I'm not giving him a huge advantage, if any, over Sam Darnold at this point. Jayden Daniels, I mean, as great as he's played, rookie.
No experience.
Baker Mayfield, I mean, toss-up. And then you go further down, it's Brock Purdy. I don't know. Jalen Hurts, if you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said yeah. But right now, Jalen Hurts is a turnover machine, and Sam Darnold is running that offense beautifully. Dak Prescott, maybe, but he can't do anything early in these games, it seems like. So, the NFC is pretty wide open right now, and the Vikings are for real. And then the Packers, the team that they played. I didn't say Jordan Love there. I got to see more on Love personally.
He threw the 52 passes. That's who it was. Jordan Love.
So Jordan Love's 0-2 this year. Malik Willis 2-0, but that is just a product of the Packers' schedule. But I think the Packers are a legit team too. Nothing against them. Jordan Love's first game back, and he has to go up against Brian Flores' defense. That's a brutal spot to be in, especially when his defense didn't do a great job to put him in a good spot early in this game and give him any leeway. The Vikings were moving the ball at will in that first half, but the Vikings are for real. The Packers are for real. And if you're the Detroit Lions, you're like, shit, was our window last year? Because
Dude, I mean,
I thought it was their division to hold. And, in the NFL, you can never take an opportunity for granted, man.
Everyone was expecting this to be a very good division, but I don't think they were expecting it to be this competitive, man. The Vikings had the 49ers looking rattled.
Yeah, they weren't expecting the Vikings to be this. That's for sure.
They've had top quarterbacks, top teams in shambles, basically. So this team is definitely for real. This team is scary.
Yeah, and another team that I'm not sure if it's for real is the Commanders, but I am for sure that Jayden Daniels is for real. I don't know if the Commanders roster is really built to consistently be a good team this year. And I don't want that to come off as like, oh, I'm hating because I'm an Eagles fan. It's just when I look at Minnesota's roster, I see Pro Bowl to all pro level players, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson. I see a Jonathan Bernard. I see a Stephon Gilmore, guys that I know are good to elite players or at least have been that. For Washington, I look around and it's the offensive line isn't great on paper. The defensive line, not great on paper. The corners, not great on paper.
At all.
But Jayden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury have something working right now that the offense is just moving at such a high level. Jayden Daniels has the highest completion percentage of any player through a 4-game stretch in September, not even just a rookie, just any player, period. 82% completion percentage in September is just ridiculous. The guy is reading NFL defenses in an NFL field, not just like a pro, but like an elite pro, all ready to open up the season. And you start to think, well, Washington now has the offensive mind of Kingsbury, a good head coach in Dan Quinn, because we've seen him before in Atlanta lead a team to a Super Bowl when there's a good offensive mind next to him. And they have the franchise quarterback in Jayden Daniels. And we've said this once or twice on the show, I'll say it again. When you have those things, everything else just kind of falls a little bit more into place. Terry McLaurin now looking really good. All of a sudden, Brian Robinson looking like one of the better running backs in football. Jeremy McNichols, whoever that guy is, didn't know who he was, scores 2 touchdowns today. Zach Ertz all of a sudden rejuvenated in his career. Frankie Louvu on that defense. Bobby Wagner, the linebackers are showing out, and it's, Philly's struggling. Dallas is struggling, and it's like, are the Commanders on their way to winning the NFC East?
Man, who even knows, man? This is all Jayden Daniels, man, because can you name one position group that they're above average at? Maybe linebacker? Maybe?
Linebacker, I would say they're above average at with Wagner and Louvu, but a whole group. Terry McLaurin's good, but I'm not about to elevate De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey to above average.
Exactly, man. I think this is all Jayden Daniels, man. They've completely taken a page out of the Baltimore Ravens playbook, and they're going all in on his run game that was basically non-existent last year with damn near the same running back group. So, it just so happens that Jayden Daniels happens to be far more accurate than Lamar Jackson was in his first year as a pro.
So that was the thing with Jayden. It was he's got a better arm than Lamar, but he's not as good of a runner. But he didn't need to be as good of a runner for this offense because of Brian Robinson. And, Cliff Kingsbury got a lot of shit for his time in Arizona. But this is a pretty good look for Kingsbury. And he simplifies the offense. And, obviously hindsight's 2020, but they bring in Kingsbury to help Jayden Daniels transition to the NFL. Going from college to the NFL, they want a system that works for this guy, makes him comfortable. So Kingsbury runs a little bit of a college offense. Obviously, he came, I believe, from, it was one of those Texas schools or somewhere, an SEC school. He comes, or Big 12, but he comes from one of those, really decent programs down south and one of the higher scoring offenses. And he comes and works with Kyler. And it's successful his first year, but then Kingsbury makes some boneheaded decisions as a head coach, doesn't really have the locker room, and I thought was just going to be blackballed from the league. But now what he's doing with Jayden Daniels is, one, restoring his image, but 2, his offense is a perfect fit for Daniels' rookie season because it's not super complex. It is college-like, but it plays to Daniels' strengths. And Kingsbury is dialing up the perfect plays. And Daniels, being 24, 2 years older than CJ Stroud, but having that college experience, does have more of an football IQ than a lot of rookies have. He doesn't have the problem that Caleb Williams has of holding the ball too long. He doesn't have the problem that even a younger guy like Anthony Richardson has of bad decision making. He is has roughed out the edges on his game at that point and was, in my opinion, the more pro-ready quarterback. Everybody's debating him and Drake May. Which one do you take? But it was always, well, Jayden's more pro-ready. He's coming off a Heisman season. And you're now seeing that in the NFL. He looks like the clear rookie of the year.
Oh, yeah, easily, man. And what makes Jayden Daniels, like you said earlier, what makes him so great is that in college, he played, 5 years? He's taken so many snaps. He's seen so many coverages. But now the thing with mobile quarterbacks is you're not going to really make as many mistakes because you go back to your instincts, man. You're going to run and get out of there. First week, I believe he had, 16 carries? If his first read wasn't there, he's taking off, man. So therefore, you're not really putting the ball in harm's way as opposed to the typical pocket passer quarterback. But now, man, they have a top 10 run game. And now your defense is always fresh because they're getting rest on the sideline, man. That offensive line is not elite, but somehow, some way, this Jayden Daniels and Brian Robinson combination is working, man. Like, it's actually working. They got a top 5 run game in the league right now. Scary Terry has been one of the more consistent wide receivers.
And Austin Eckler was out this week, but against Cincinnati, he was great. Yeah,
that running back room is definitely better than everybody else anticipated, for sure. And Terry McLaurin has been one of the more consistent wide receivers as well since he's entered the league. So I'm glad he has that security blanket who you can rely on also. So this team is definitely building something. They definitely got a bright future, man.
Yeah, and that's where I think it is. I don't want to sound like a hater or anything like that because I don't mean to come at it from that, but I think in back-to-back weeks they've played some pretty bad defenses in Cincinnati and Arizona. I don't think they're going to face that kind of coverage every week. I think it's great that it speaks to how good Jayden Daniels is that he's able just to pick apart those defenses because they're not great. But, he's going to face some stiffer competition. They have the Browns coming to Washington next week. So I don't know how tough. Yeah, but then they go to Baltimore, host Carolina, host the Bears, at the Giants, host the Steelers. Like the first half of the year,
not a bad schedule.
They might finish with 2 or 3 losses at that point, looking at that schedule. So the hype for Jayden Daniels is probably only going to grow. But I'm definitely interested to see. I'm just a little bit skeptical, and maybe some of this is just some of my preseason notions and thoughts. But man, 67% of that roster turned over, and by the end of week 4, they're firing on all cylinders. That's a hell of a coaching job if it stays true.
Yeah, facts, man. And the bottom of the line with Jayden Daniels is, that he's capable of doing this now. We see the flashes. We're witnessing it now. So that's really all that matters, man. You know what your quarterback is capable of doing and what can make him be successful. So in the future, it's easier to build your team. And that's all you were looking for.
Yeah, for sure. I want to move on. I want to talk about Kansas City because they're 4-0, but they had a little bit of a uh-oh today. Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, I know it's corny, but I try to get the titles and the puns.
Hey, it works, man.
A little funny. Patrick Mahomes inadvertently may have ended the season of his number 1 wide receiver, Rashee Rice. It sucks for the Chiefs. It sucks for me and you as fantasy managers of Rashee Rice, and he was carrying our teams. But I think that this is a bigger problem for Kansas City than many may think. They may think, oh, just because it's the Chiefs, they'll figure it out. Listen, Travis Kelce is perhaps the greatest tight end of all time. He doesn't have it like he used to. That's just a fact. Hollywood Brown already was out for the year. Rashee Rice now may be out for the year, and you start looking at that Chiefs wide receiver room, and it might be worse than last year's going forward. You have Xavier Worthy, a rookie, who now that he's going to be getting all this defensive attention, some of his weaknesses are probably going to come out.
Yeah.
Sky Moore, who dropped a bad pass today, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Justin Watson. And Isaiah Pacheco is also hurt. So you had to bring back Kareem Hunt to be your lead runner. The weapons around Patrick Mahomes are not good. And maybe if Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are healthy, the Chargers win this game. I mean, 17-10 isn't exactly a win that you're taking victory laps
Bosa is
around.
banged up as well, so keep that in mind.
So there is a chink in the armor, if you will, of Kansas City might need something. And of course, the group chat with me and my buddies was, who are they going to trade for? Tyler Lockett, Amari Cooper. Those were names that were thrown out. But if they don't, man, how worried would you be as a Chiefs fan, despite being 4-0, if Rashee Rice was to miss the season?
Listen, man, with no Hollywood and no Rashee Rice, I never want to doubt Patrick Mahomes, but I just can't see them making a Super Bowl, man. Like, who are they going to throw the ball to, dog?
Well, Hollywood Brown could be back for the playoffs. But
maybe. And he might miss the first playoff game. They will have to get a bye week, I believe, if he stays on track towards his recovery or whatever. You got to make a trade, man. If you really want to go all in on this 3P, if they want a second rounder for Amari Cooper, I'm giving it up.
And Amari Cooper's got 1 year left on the deal too, so it works timeline wise. He was potentially involved in that Pittsburgh. It was like a 3-team deal. Pittsburgh was getting Ayuk, the Browns were getting draft capital, and Amari Cooper was going to go to San Francisco. That was like floated, but the Cleveland San Francisco deal that was agreed to was Amari Cooper to San Francisco. So Cleveland was at least willing to move off of Cooper. Now they were getting Ayuk back in the deal. So, but Cleveland's 1-3 to open the season.
And they might be looking to blow it up soon. Yeah, they might be looking to blow it up anyway. Amari Cooper, I believe, is on a contract year. And what better quarterback to have in a contract year than Patrick freaking Mahomes with nobody to throw the ball to? So, I mean, honestly, I feel like that trade in itself would be a win for all parties anyways. But they got to make a trade, man. I'm making calls now. They're saying it looks like a torn ACL with Rashee Rice. So they need to make some calls ASAP because, I mean, they're 4-0 now. But come playoff time, rookie Xavier Worthy. I mean, they did have a rookie Rashee Rice last year, but a rookie Xavier Worthy cannot be your number 1 wide receiver, man. Just
that's a lot of pressure on him and Mahomes at this point. And Kelsey was better last year than he is this year. They had a run game with Pacheco that was better. If I'm a Chiefs fan, listen, it's the Chiefs, and I trust the organization. I trust Brett Veach. So I don't want to say there's like panic alarms or whatever, but you got to be thinking, what the hell, man? Pacheco, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice now, and we are somehow in a worse spot than we were weapons-wise last year, and we thought last year was the worst it was going to be. And you remember coming into this year thinking about the Chiefs' offense, it was Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Worthy was going to be I had floated out, man, they could just freaking run the table and go 17-0, and now it's like, dude, I don't know if they could put up 20 points in a game.
Yeah, man, they got to do something. I mean, luckily for them, Kareem Hunt doesn't look completely out of shape. They might have an okay run game moving forward. My thing is, Noah Gray might be their second best receiver to Travis Kelce at this point. Like, that's my big thing. They're 2 tight ends. You can't have a likely.
I don't know if there's anybody on like the waiver wire. I don't know if there's anybody in free agency that they could give a call to. Nobody's like coming to mind right now. But the thing that's also sucks is 2 of the better wide receivers that are potentially on the market are in their division. Like, they're not getting Devontae Adams. The Raiders aren't doing that. And they're not getting Cortland Sutton. The Broncos aren't doing that. So it's like, you either go get Amari Cooper, or maybe you can convince Seattle to give you Tyler Lockett, but a 3-0 start, potentially 4-0. I don't know if that's a team that's looking to move pieces at this point in time. And you start looking around, the Cardinals got nobody for you. The Rams got nobody for you. The Panthers barely got anybody for themselves. The Giants, they don't have a receiver. I mean, maybe you could get like a Slayton or something, but what is that even worth at that point to you?
Hey, you can work with that. You can work with that, though.
I mean, they got Tony from them. So,
I mean, and then
they might call up Tony and bring him back, truthfully.
The Bengals aren't going to give up T. Higgins either. That's 0% chance happening. So, honestly, they got to work some magic.
Maybe you could call up the Titans and try to get Tyler Boyd or DeAndre Hopkins.
Maybe. They can trade for Boyd right now? Oh, man.
I mean, I don't think they can move Boyd yet, but I think they could move him technically at the deadline. Yeah. But, at least Kansas City for their sake, has built up this 4-0 record to kind of fall back on. I know NFL fans probably aren't happy that there's something out there for Kansas City, but hey, if Mahomes does it again, we might have to have some conversations that people don't want to have.
Oh man, we're gonna have to bookmark this conversation.
Yeah. It's we're still in September here. Yeah. I want to finish it off tonight talking about the Baltimore Ravens. We finished Sunday Night Football. We hopped on here and started recording, and I said it in a TikTok, and I don't know your thoughts on it, but I don't think this game told me a lot about the Bills. I think the Bills are 3-0. I think the Bills are on their high horse, and I think they just kind of got caught in a situation where they're playing a desperate team on the road that's talented and kind of got punched in the mouth and never recovered. And that happens from time to time in the regular season. If the Bills had won this game, I think I would have been like, wow, like they're really legit. Yeah. But I don't think I left this game thinking the Bills aren't legit. I just left this game thinking the Ravens got the better of them this time. But this was a huge night for Baltimore, in my opinion. One, their offense going into this week had the most yards per game of any offense in the NFL. So they were putting up numbers. Lamar was looking good. Derrick Henry, now through 4 weeks with this team, his rushing yards has gone up every single game. He almost had 200 a night. He broke off an 87-yard touchdown. He has 6 touchdowns in 4 games. Derrick Henry has been everything is advertised for Baltimore.
Better, for sure.
And and the defense tonight finally looked like a Baltimore Ravens defense. We said going into the year, Baltimore might start off slow. Don't be surprised. New defensive coordinator. And this is a defense that lost 5 to 7 key rotational pieces. Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, Brock Yassin, Jadeveon Clowney. Like, these are big pieces that left this team. Tonight, to be able to put up the performance they did against Buffalo, Nate Wiggins should have had 2 interceptions in this game. Marlon Humphrey had a couple nice pass breakups. Kyle Hamilton was all over the field. Roquan Smith was laying tackles. Matabuke was getting pressure. And you started looking and going, oh, did Baltimore figure it out? They're 2-2 now. And per Vegas odds, 3rd best odds to go win the Super Bowl. So Vegas thinks they're back for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this team tonight looked like the best team in the NFL. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people were saying it was the Buffalo Bills, and they just dog-walked them. Their offense looked unstoppable. Justice Hill, he had like 100 yards. Derrick Henry, 200 yards. Lamar Jackson is hooping. And it's like the offense, the run game, it just looked unstoppable, man. The defense is so versatile. Everybody can kind of play a hybrid position. They can play multiple positions, whether it's corner, safety, linebacker. It's just so they're so versatile. Like Chris Collinsworth said, when the dudes are blitzing, they can blitz 5 people. You don't know which 5 people are rushing, so it's kind of hard for your offensive line to pick that up. Yeah. So I mean, this team, the defense has finally showed up. I mean, I don't know what's been going on in the meetings and in practice, but they've definitely been held accountable 100% these last couple of weeks.
And you knew it was only a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
Nobody, and we weren't saying this, but anybody who thought that the Ravens defense wasn't going to figure it out just hasn't been watching football. It's John Harbaugh, it's the Ravens. The defense was going to work itself out. It was a matter of how long is it going to take? How far behind the 8 ball are they going to be? And they're 2-2, but it's a very different 2-2 than the Jets and the Eagles, because this 2-2 is like, we're 2-2, but if Isaiah Likely wore a shoe size smaller, we beat the Chiefs on opening night potentially. Yeah. They had to go for 2, but they're a couple of plays away from being 4-0.
Yeah. I mean, the Ravens, the only question mark is the wide receiver group. They stepped up tonight. Bateman made some tough catches. Zay Flowers, he does what Zay Flowers does every game or so.
Aguilar's been a decent 3rd option for them. And Mark Andrews has done nothing for this team. He's on pace for 25 catches this season. That's his pace right now.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't even realize that. I mean, likely he was quiet the last couple of games after that big coming out party in week 1. He's been quiet, but now he's slowly but surely working his way back.
And we haven't even talked about Justice Hill. This guy was fantastic tonight. If they're 1-2 punch out running, to have a 1-2-3 punch, really, because of Lamar's rushing ability, but to have Derrick Henry rush for 200 yards and Justice Hill receive for 80 and a touchdown, that kind of production out of the backfield, that's better than Detroit.
Yeah, man, that triple read option they ran tonight, I'm like, how do you even guard that? How do you even guard that, man?
Just wrap it up. Ball up top.
Man.
That's it for that.
Like, how do you even guard that, man? This run game, at least, if they stick to this identity and ride this all the way to the end of the season, they could definitely win, 13 games. They can definitely at least
I'll tell you what, man. Derrick Henry, you think he's hard to tackle in September. Go give it your best effort in January in that cold Baltimore weather, 20 degrees out. And you tell me how it feels to try and tackle that man then.
Yeah, this team is built for the playoffs, man. This team, how versatile they are on defense. This is crazy run game. They don't got J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards back there no more. This is Derrick Henry and Justice Hill.
And again, you talk about the door being cracked open. Kansas City down weapons now. And your weapons for Baltimore got better. Buffalo, you just saw that you could beat them. Houston, you've seen defenses stifle them, and you beat them last year in the playoffs. Cincinnati's 1-3. That's a huge game next week. Cincinnati and Baltimore play each other next week. And we could either leave there with Baltimore 3-2, Cincinnati 1-4, or both teams 2-3 and Cincinnati having a game up on Baltimore.
Hey, man, and if the Steelers lose, that's a 3-way tie already. You're going into week 6.
Well, no, because Pittsburgh will be 3-2.
Yeah, but it'll be a 2-way tie between them. But
I don't think anybody would think Pittsburgh's lead is safe.
Yeah, 100%.
And Pittsburgh hosts Dallas, and Dallas is coming off a long week. So Dallas is extra rested.
Yeah, hey, man, this season's actually getting pretty spicy, man. The Ravens.
The parity in the league is crazy. And we talked about that. Well, we've talked about that, though. In the NFL, the skill gap between these teams, man, it is not as far off as you think when you look at the Madden rosters.
Yeah, man. And that's one thing that a lot of people, I feel like, are overrating to a certain extent is these quarterbacks with, like, quote-unquote playoff experience, man. I'm starting to think if it's not Patrick Mahomes, I don't really think it matters that much anymore, man. You look at Jalen Hurts and how he's running his team. He went to a Super Bowl. You want to look at, Baker Mayfield. He can beat anyone on any given Sunday. Matt Stafford, man, he's looking good, but he's getting older. Like, and all these quarterbacks. The
problem with that too is, and I talked about this in a video on my channel last week, it's the paying of Tua, Dak, Trevor. It's starting, and it hasn't even fully for some of those teams. But You talk about handicapping yourself. I mean, look at Dallas's build. When they pay CD, because they had to, and they paid Dak because they felt like they had to. Well, you're not going to let Michael walk. What you're able to do with that roster becomes so limited, and it's like, well, would I rather be giving Dak 60 a year or just putting 10 on a Sam Darnold and getting a good offensive mind? Or, and Darnold is the one, exception this year. But Baker's making like 40. Would I rather 20 extra million to spend on another wide receiver and another corner or whatever it may be and have Baker or have Dak and Jalen Tolbert?
I mean, man, it's
no shade at Tolbert, but
I mean, it's incredible, man, how much people can overrate even just one playoff win. Trevor Lawrence wins one playoff game in his second year, and look how much money he's getting paid now. Joe Burrow can't stay healthy.
How many wins does he have this season?
Exactly, man. Like, Joe Burrow can't even stay healthy. Jalen Hurts cannot even stop turning the ball over. Dak Prescott only has, 2 or 3 playoff wins in his whole career. So it's like you want to pay someone for this playoff experience because they've shown the flashes. But honestly, I'm starting to think coaching at this point is more important. Coaching in a solid run game, building a more solid team.
Well, a run game has become so important. Coaching's where it's at. You have to have the right coach because you look at the Jets. You look at potentially.
You think about it and it's like, damn.
You look at potentially my Eagles. If instead of Sirianni, they had Matt LaFleur or Kevin O'Connell, Are they 4-0?
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
Deshaun Watson is another
this
example.
is why this offseason, for the Eagles, you know, a little bit of a tangent, but the end of the pod, I was like, fire Sirianni. And people were like, he's got a good record. And I'm like, he can't do anything, though. You're so unconfident in him. You have to bring in a new OC and a new DC that get to do all their own play calling. And Jalen Hurts doesn't even believe in Sirianni's knowledge of ball.
What is he even doing?
I don't know.
Like, what is he doing at this point?
Like, that's the thing. What is he doing? Calling timeouts, I guess. Because he has to. But his game management isn't even smart. That's the one thing he's getting critiqued for, and it's the only thing he has a job doing, it seems. So
yeah, man. And the only difference between the Ravens and giving Lamar all this money is that he's won 2 MVPs, and he was.
But Lamar's proven that when you need him to be, he's an offense by himself. You pay Lamar, and again, you pay Lamar, you pay Josh Allen, you pay Patrick Mahomes. You don't overthink those. Justin Herbert is starting to look like that was the correct decision. And yeah, you know, I said this, you know, even though it looks completely wrong. Herbert, I would have paid. Trevor Lawrence, I would have paid. Jordan Love, I would have paid because they're young. They showed the athleticism. They showed the arm talent. Trevor Lawrence is a really weird case here.
You got to fire a coach, man. Doug Peterson.
But Dak, I wouldn't have paid. Tua, I wouldn't have paid because but I'm saying in their situations with great things around them, they failed. Justin Herbert never had anything great around him, but you could see it was there. Trevor did win that playoff game and was 8-3 last year. It was either pay him or don't. I understand why you landed on pay him. Jordan Love, same deal. But if you're not sure, if in your building you don't fully believe you have a top 10 guy, let him walk. That's where I'm at on it.
Especially if your supporting cast is older, it's not good. I don't think it's good to pay a young quarterback who hasn't had a chance to really lead a team with when they don't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert and Devon A-Chain, where they don't why would you pay someone like that? Tyreek Hill isn't getting younger.
The same thing with Dak, though. And people will push back on this because I'm an Eagles fan or whatever, but Dak had CeeDee, he had Amari Cooper, he had Zeke, and still couldn't get you to an NFC championship. Why do you believe with less of those things you're going to get something better from a guy who's 31 years old?
Yeah, and that's a perfect.
That's a thing. Trevor Lawrence is younger than Jayden Daniels, or they're like a month apart in age.
Yeah,
so it's like it's way too early to give up on Trevor Lawrence, but you're not happy right now, that's for sure.
That's just what it boils down to, man. But Baltimore, man, they're honestly, I think I give them the favorites to win the Super Bowl right now. I feel like, man, I don't see the consistency from the 49ers. They're banged up. I think what the Ravens are doing now, this is the most consistent, sustainable play style in the whole league, honestly, in my opinion. That's why I think the Commanders can stay relevant.
I still think if I had to bet a team, it'd be Kansas City because I just trust their front office to go get a wide receiver if they need to. But, man, you start talking about who would you bet second, not at value, but if my life was on it, Baltimore might be that team, man. Because
so right now I got them over KC because I don't see it, man. Like Rashee Rice is an intermediate guy, so I can see how you can move the
that's if Rashee Rice is done for the year.
Rumor has it it's torn ACL.
I know.
That's what everyone's saying.
You gotta hold out. I gotta hope. But that's all we got that's all we got for this episode of Yapping Football. Be sure to leave all your thoughts on Week 4 in the comment section. We'll be back up here later this week for a little bit of a Week 5 preview. We got some really fun games. We got Baltimore, Cincinnati. We got Buffalo, Houston. We got Pittsburgh, Dallas, Kansas City, New Orleans. The Eagles, thankfully, are on a bye, so they can't ruin my mental health. But we will catch you guys next week. Peace.
Yes, sir.